I've been seeing a lot of questions everywhere lately. There was even a topic in one of my psychology classes about a year ago. Can AI replace therapy? And this has been a very great topic for discussion. Some people will say absolutely they can and they will. Some people believe that they will within the next 10 years or so. Other people may think that it's an incredibly dangerous idea. And some people will obviously always say, no, AI cannot absolutely replace humans. So instead of picking a side, I wanted to try to slow this conversation down just a little bit. So what happens when someone actually opens like Chat GPT or any kind of other AI? I don't really know any other one, so I do apologize. Because, maybe they're struggling with something. Okay, maybe they just want to vent or something like that. And the first thing that AI does incredibly well is gather information, especially about that person. It can help identify and explain depression because it's built off of the interweb. So whatever information has always been inputted, it can easily pull that up. So yes, it can pull up certain symptoms of trauma or grief and learning how to help communicate and identifying patterns, and it can organize all of these things. Okay, and it can absolutely make you figure out a way for you to understand it. And honestly, it's incredibly impressive the amount of things that AI itself can do. But here's something else that's interesting that happens is when you start to begin reflecting, when you start to hear your own thoughts, and you notice when you yourself start to contradict yourself, sometimes sometimes you'll actually answer your own question before you even realize it, or before you even start finishing the question itself. I know for a fact, like I've answered myself halfway through a sentence when I was asking myself, and that's where you start to tell your own story. Now, understanding that is an incredibly powerful tool. Sometimes having something explained differently changes everything. It helps you gather more information or question your other thoughts, and you start to fully understand. Maybe you have repeated a certain pattern for a number of years, and so it does bring a level of understanding, and it's incredible. But does understanding automatically change the behavior? Does it actually change? Because you yourself as a human being must make the decision to change. And I don't think AI can do that at all. And this is where I think that every, self-help book or therapist or mentor, and now you have AI, they all run into the kind of the same exact stone wall. You can go to a therapist for decades, okay? And those therapists can absolutely be there to help communicate with you, give you tools to overcome certain things, different coping mechanisms. Maybe if you feel the need for prescription medication, they can give you prescription medication. But one thing that they cannot do for you is make that decision for you. They cannot make that decision to actually change the pattern that you keep living through. They cannot decide for you to apologize for anyone else. They can't decide for you to leave an unhealthy relationship. They can't decide for you to stop drinking if you have a drinking problem. They can't decide for you to go and apply for a new job. They can't decide for you to make the conscious effort to go to the gym. Eventually, at some point in time, the human being himself has to make that decision for themselves. After you make that decision, that's where the behavior itself starts to actually change. And it's not because you understood stuff or you had a whole bunch of information or you were able to self-reflect, even if it was your entire life and you gathered even more information. Not even with all of this information, you started to understand how you were also contributing to your life and to your downfalls. It's this. Once you make that decision is where you start to break that pattern and you start to change and create better behaviors, healthier behaviors. So, can AI actually replace therapy? Honestly, I don't know. Because again, AI can help you explain certain things. It can help teach you and listen to you and organize your thoughts on where you're coming from. But can AI actually live your life? Can AI actually make that decision for you? Can AI actually build relationships and connections with other human beings? And most importantly, can AI itself actually experience emotion? AI in general has already helped millions of people organize their thoughts. There have been many inferences where it has made psychological education more accessible now more than ever. Actually, education in general and anything has made it even more accessible. And for a lot of people, maybe it is a first step, but I don't truly believe that it is enough. But I think that the bigger question is having a better understanding can actually I think the bigger question is, I don't think, but I think there's a bigger question. Understanding versus transformation. I don't think that the biggest challenge humanity faces is accessing this level of information anymore. I think it comes down to it's transforming that information into an actual action. Whether that information comes from a therapist or a book, or even artificial intelligence in general. So maybe that question isn't can AI replace therapy? Maybe a healthier alternative question is what role should AI play in helping us understand ourselves? And where does that responsibility still belong to ourselves? And I would love to absolutely hear your thoughts, especially on this topic, because this is a very controversial topic. And there's a lot of people who are sitting there saying that AI could absolutely replace humans. There have been inferences where AI has already started to replace jobs in general. And I know that I was watching a Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast with I believe he was a psychological doctor as well too. I believe he had his PhD. I'd have to go through it again, and I can add it to the link as well too. And I believe that their inference was that AI absolutely would replace human beings, and that there are no guardrails between AI and humans. And so I would love to hear everyone's thoughts about AI specifically. And how you feel if you believe that it's actually going to start replacing people's jobs and therapists and psychologists and a lot of different things actually.